Hey fam, I want you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications.
April is World Autism Awareness Month, during which the goal is to promote awareness, acceptance, and support for those on the autism spectrum and their families. In the United States, autism disproportionately affects Black children, yet Black and Hispanic children continue to be less likely to be identified with Autism Spectrum Disorder, or ASD, than white children. These differences suggest that Black and Hispanic children may face socioeconomic or other barriers that lead to a lack of or a delayed access to evaluation, diagnosis, and services. Even after diagnosis, parents are often overwhelmed, trying to navigate the maze of the education system in order to do what is best for their children, and don't I know it. So, to help the parents who are watching today, or perhaps you know some parents who need this information, here to offer guidance is an expert in the field, education law attorney, Reverend Denise Nance Pierce. Welcome to you, Reverend Pierce.
Thank you, thank you.
And I have to confess, yes, you're Reverend Pierce, Attorney Pierce, and all those things, but you are also Denise Pierce, who I have known practically as long as I have been an adult, and you hail from the great state of Texas.
Yes, I do.
I am so thankful that you are all the way here with us to talk about a subject that is near and dear to my heart and yours, I know, but is so important for everyone.
It certainly is.
Denise, a parent gets an autism diagnosis.
Right.
And the world goes black for a minute. And all of a sudden, they've got to figure out what part is medical, what part is learning disability, what the doctor's supposed to do, what the school's supposed to do, if there are supplements, if there are all of these random treatments that are going to be the one thing that brings their child through. And in their heads, they're hearing start school, start therapy, no cure, no recovery. So they're getting all of these messages at the same time. And then it intersects with the educational system. And I know that that is a unique specialty of yours. And what I think is interesting is that you work kind of on the other side of it than me as a mom who has a child on the spectrum who's fighting and advocating for my child, because you have worked for many years in defense of school systems and representing school systems. So I thought, which I told you, you're perfect for this, because you know what parents need to know in order to be able to help their children, which of course that's what the school system wants, and that's what the parents want for their children also. So first tell me, like, you're entering that system and they say to you, here's your IEP. What the heck?
So you've already started talking about the jargon of special education. And any parent that has a student with disabilities has probably learned and has mastered this jargon. But for a new parent entering into public schools and asking questions about how their students with disabilities should be served, it's important to ask people to explain what's happening. And essentially what's happening is every public school in our country has an obligation based on a federal law adopted by Congress in 1975 to make certain that every child with a disability in our school system is identified, located, and served in accordance with their disability, and gets a unique plan for that child called an IEP, an individualized education plan that is tailored for the educational needs of that student. And there's a team of people we call the IEP team. In my home state of Texas, we also call it the ARD committee, the Admission Review and Dismissal Committee. And that committee is empowered and expected by our federal law to make decisions about serving that child's unique needs. The parent is on that committee. The child can be on that committee if it's appropriate for the child to be there. There's also a regular education teacher, a special education teacher, a school administrator that has the ability to leverage the school's resources for the child's needs, someone that understands all the evaluation documents that come in, the evaluations from the doctors and from the psychologist and from others who have tried to ascertain how the student's disability relates to the child's educational needs, and therefore how the school can partner with mom and dad to make sure the child is getting educational benefits.
Okay, no, let me challenge you right there. Hold on, put a pause. And you sound real great. See, this is why she's my friend. But there are moms who are listening, right? And dads who everything you said, even though you said it in a way that could be understood, especially for people who've had to deal with it. I'm in my 10th year. My son's 13. Well, we got a diagnosis in this too. So I'm in my 11th year, right? But it may go right over some heads. And I don't know if you remember the story, but there was one time when I was having to go to an IEP meeting. It was very early on in the whole IEP process. I was in the parking lot, as I often was before I had to go into an IEP. And my whole process was sob and sob and sob, crying, because I had to deal with the fact that I was going into this IEP because my child, who was not yet 3, was in the position where he needed me to be in these meetings in order to get the education that he needed. And then after I sobbed and sobbed and sobbed, then I would call you. And you would remind me that I was the best advocate for my child, right? But I was Monique, lawyer, you know, Monique with multiple degrees, Monique who had some reasonable finances to be able to do things for my child. So I remember one of those days I went in there and I said, well, this school system does not offer a class. My child is ready for a class. You're supposed to have an individual plan for my child. If there's no class, then shouldn't you create a class? And because I asked to create a class, the mama who had MS, who was coming there in a taxi every day, her son got a class. The dad who was working, who was single parenting, his son got a class. The woman whose child had Tourette's and had not yet been identified with autism got a class. So it was 6 other people who, because one advocate spoke up, got something. But there are parents who can't do that for themselves. What is it that the school system is offering, like in that big, thick packet of stuff they give you, that can tell a parent, what do I do now after I finish sobbing?
So here's the good news for parents, and whether the parent is educated or not. The good news is that the law affords the parent a seat at the table. The law affords the parent the ability to consent to testing and to consent to services. The parent is not unempowered in those conversations. And the parent should always advocate for their child in the best way that they know how in the context of those meetings, while also becoming increasingly informed as time goes on about their child. Also,
we're about to go to a break, so I want to hurry you along. Isn't there also a number or something that they can call if they need assistance with it? Doesn't the school system provide them assistance before they had to call somebody like me and I start suing school systems?
Absolutely. So the law requires, and every school will give the parents a packet called procedural safeguards that explains the rights of every parent, the rights of every child, including phone numbers to call to get information. I commend every parent of a special education student to avail themselves of those processes to make good relationships with their child's teachers and parents. The schools certainly have the persons who are empowered to make decisions and to make differences in terms of resources and services for their children. And parents just need to have those meaningful conversations both in IEP meetings and out of them so that their children can benefit from the school services that are being offered.
Oh, well, Reverend Dr. Attorney Pierce, thank you so much for sharing all of this decades of information with us today. It is World Autism Awareness Month. Thank you for having on your pen, but it's Autism Awareness Month every month for children of parents on the spectrum. So I'm wearing my blue, and I hope you all will join us in lighting it up blue this month.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one
Calling
moment.
all HBCU alums, students, and leaders. Enter the Ford Motor Company HBCU Mobility Challenge and win $25,000 for your school. That's a lot of dough. Come on, schools. Building on their long-term support of HBCUs, Ford is looking to improve mobility in HBCU communities through innovative solutions. The winning program will receive a grant of up to $25,000 to implement their proposal. The deadline to apply has been extended to April 15th, 2019. Go to fgb.life for more information and to apply. Ford goes further in our community.
Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video.